Welcome to the debate. Back in 1950, Alan Turing asked this deceptively simple, almost haunting question. He just asked, can machines think?
Right. A question we've been chasing for, over 70 years now?
Exactly. Through this dizzying cycle of incredible breakthroughs and then, crushing AI winters. But today, we're facing something that feels entirely different.
Or at least it's marketed as entirely different.
Right, and that is exactly the central question before us today. We're looking at the evolution of artificial intelligence. Are we witnessing an unprecedented, fundamental revolution in human technology? Or, is this simply the latest, highly resourced hype cycle built on historical pattern recognition tools? I'll be arguing that the current wave of generative AI represents a fundamental rupture from past technologies.
And I hold that this current wave is just an evolutionary step. I mean, it is undeniably impressive in scale, sure, but fundamentally, it relies on the exact same probabilistic pattern matching that triggered all those historical AI winters, mostly when our expectations inevitably outpaced algorithmic reality.
So, to grasp why this moment is a true rupture, we don't really need to rehash the entire history of early brittle expert systems like the 1960s ELIZA or Mycin.
Because they relied on rigid, hand-coded logic.
Right.
Exactly. The real pivot point, the cinematic shift, if you will, was the 2017 transformer architecture. We finally, mercifully, moved past reading data sequentially.
By using attention mechanisms.
Yes. Models could suddenly look at all the relationships in a sequence of data simultaneously. So we shifted from AI being this narrow, passive tool to an active collaborator, processing text, image, and code at a population scale.
I hear that, but you're completely ignoring the historical gravity of the AI winters.
Oh, I'm not ignoring them.
Well, in the 1970s and again in the late 80s, massive hype met catastrophic funding drops. Why? Because brittle systems failed in the real world, and I'd argue we are dangerously close to repeating that hubris today.
You really think today's large language models are just as brittle?
Mathematically, yes. They appear magical, but they are simply highly complex versions of your smartphone's autocomplete.
You really think there's no difference in kind there?
The scale is different, but the mechanism is the same. They tokenize data, translating words into numbers. Like, a word might become a token array, say bracket 3422591, right? And then they calculate matrix probabilities to guess the next logical token. Brute force mathematics does not equal true understanding.
But the output is...
Let me just add, we are hitting a wall. Google reportedly spent nearly $191 million just to train Gemini Ultra. We are threatening a new saturation point where the cost to scale entirely exceeds the practical value.
Wait, hold on. If it's just doing brute force token counting, like you say, how do you explain the paradigm shift in feature extraction?
Feature extraction?
Yeah. Look back at the 2010s shift to deep learning. Think about the 2012 ImageNet breakthrough. The machine wasn't just doing faster math. It was finally figuring out what to look at.
Right, using convolutional neural networks.
Exactly. We stopped explicitly programming systems to look for edges or textures. The network automatically discovered the critical features of a dataset. It's like, instead of giving a child a rigid rulebook on how to identify a cat, you just show them millions of pictures. It learned how to see on its own.
Traditional math for these neural networks goes all the way back to Frank Rosenblatt's perceptron in 1957. The architecture is ancient. The only real difference today is that we finally have the hardware to run the math at scale.
Hardware? You're reducing the entire generative era to a hardware upgrade?
Fundamentally, yes. Global AI compute capacity has just exploded. It's growing by 3.3 times per year since 2022? We have the equivalent of over 17.1 million state-of-the-art H100 chips operating globally right now.
That's a massive amount of compute.
Right. So the magic isn't in some new type of machine cognition. It's simply what happens when you throw tens of millions of modern semiconductors at a 60-year-old statistical concept.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because, if it's just a 60-year-old statistical concept supercharged by silicon, how is it executing complex human workflows?
You mean beyond just generating text?
Exactly. We aren't just talking about chatbots anymore. Look at the 2024 to 2026 shift toward agentic AI. We're looking at reasoning models like OpenAI's O1 or Claude's Opus 4.6 that use explicit chain of thought to plan multi-step processes.
Sure, they output steps.
They test internal hypotheses before they even output an answer. If a machine can write a flawless, multi-step Python script autonomously, does the philosophical distinction between statistical probability and understanding actually matter in the real world?
It absolutely matters when things break down. I mean, is it actually reasoning or is it an illusion of competence?
I'd say the results speak for themselves.
But these predictive systems completely lack folk psychology. They have zero innate human capacity to understand mental states and physical reality. Because they don't have real-world grounding, they hallucinate with extreme confidence.
But hallucinations are decreasing dramatically.
They are still statistically inherent to the model. And beyond that, they can't balance subjective considerations. Think about judicial decisions or complex healthcare diagnoses.
Well, obviously, there should be a human in the loop for those.
But an AI prioritizes statistical outcomes over lived human context. Plus, as the internet saturates, we're facing the very real danger of model collapse. These models are increasingly training on synthetic data generated by other AI. The errors will compound and the models will degrade.
We haven't just built a faster calculator. We've built a synthetic reasoning engine that is rapidly embedding itself in the bedrock of global commerce.
Is it, though?
Yes, look at GitHub. There are over 4.3 million AI-related repositories now. 80% of new users are deploying Copilot in their first week.
That's just developer tooling, though?
It's a general-purpose technology akin to electricity or the steam engine. PwC data shows that industries highly exposed to AI have seen their revenue growth per employee nearly quadruple since 2022.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that the transition is that seamless. The economic reality is vastly messier than the corporate hype suggests.
Messy how? The numbers are right there.
Take those developers you just mentioned. If you look at the ground-level discussions, like on Reddit, graduate hiring has dropped by a third.
Right, because the tools are making teams more efficient.
No, because companies expect juniors to be AI-powered and self-sufficient on day one. We are squeezing out the pipeline of new talent because executives mistakenly believe the AI can do the baseline work out of the box.
Doesn't that just prove my point, though? That tools are powerful enough that companies feel they can rely on them for junior-level output?
No, it proves they are trying to rely on them, and they are hitting serious friction. Moving from a shiny vision to viability in an enterprise system is incredibly difficult.
But they are getting there.
Barely. AI is great for isolated developer productivity, sure. But deploying it to run core enterprise projects is struggling because, again, AI cannot replace contextual human judgment, lived experience, and real care. The execution matters more than the hype, and right now, the hype is masking massive systemic deployment failures.
Well, looking at the historical threads and pulling them into our immediate future, the evolution from strict symbolic logic in the 1950s to today's multimodal reasoning agents represents a profound, irreversible shift.
I'm not denying it's a massive shift.
Right, but it's a fundamental one. The convergence of web-scale data, algorithm advancements, and massive compute has permanently altered how humans create and work. You just can't unplug it any more than you can unplug the internet.
The scale is breathtaking, yes, but remembering those past AI winters is crucial right now. The structural limits of data saturation, the immense, arguably unsustainable financial costs to train these models.
Like the Gemini Ultra costs you mentioned.
Exactly. And the unbridged gap between statistical guessing and actual human comprehension. Those remain entirely unresolved. We have to approach this with intellectual caution.
I think we can both agree that the history of artificial intelligence is not a straight line. It is a series of tectonic shifts, marked by brilliant breakthroughs and sobering reality checks.
Exactly. The tension between human expectations and algorithmic reality will absolutely define the coming decade.
What makes this wave of AI impossible to ignore?
So, revolution or evolution? Honestly, it is both, and that is exactly what makes AI so hard to wrap your head around. It feels like revolution because the change is visible, fast, and it is happening to all of us at once. Jobs are shifting, industries are restructuring, and tools that would have seemed like science fiction 5 years ago are now sitting on your phone. But underneath that dramatic surface, AI has given evolving for over 70 years, quietly, incrementally. One research paper and one data set at a time. The overnight sensation that shocked the world in 2022 was actually decades in the making. Here is why that distinction matters. If you treat AI purely as a revolution, you panic, you overreact, and you make short term decisions. But if you understand it as evolution, you can pace yourself, build steadily, and make choices that actually hold up over time. The most grounded people in the AI space are not the ones chasing every new model drop. They are the ones who understand the arc. They know where this came from, so they have the better sense of where it is going. That is the mindset I want to leave you with today. Do not just react to AI, understand it. Thanks for listening, subscribe, share. This is with someone still figuring out where they stand on AI, and I will see you in the next one.